Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this press conference. As you can see today, we have quite a big cast, but I think some very interesting people. I'll introduce them in a moment, just to tell you a few very quick things. And Masa will also tell you the testing figures in a moment. But President is at swimming and fencing today. A couple of quick figures. NBC, Tuesday primetime, the most watched since the presidential debates 2020. Brazil, Monday was the highest ratings non-football since the start of 2020. So just a couple of figures. And 110 million Japanese have now watched some part of the Olympic Games. So some very encouraging figures. And just to give you an idea of how digital is going, which is exploding, IOC platforms is double what it was same point for Rio 2016. So some quite impressive digital figures as well. Okay, so today I have with me, I have 4 Olympians with me today, in fact, and 3 gold medalists. In fact, Kirsty has 2, so we've got quite a good medal haul. We have Horigome Yuto, who just won the gold in skateboard. He's not only from Tokyo, I understand he's actually from here, this district of Tokyo. So congratulations to him. Obviously, I have Chair of the IOC's Athlete Commission, Kirsty Coventry, who will also talk about athletes' experience, and as we said yesterday, questions on athlete mental health, for which, as I explained yesterday, we're doing a lot of things before these games even, but during these games even more so. And also an Olympian is IOC Athletes Department Head Kaveh Meharbi, who actually is the first director of our newly created Athletes Department. And last but in no way least, a man who keeps reminding us that he won his gold medal in the last century, IOC Medical and Scientific Director Richard Budgett. So those are our guests. We will hear from a couple of them in a minute, but Masa, first, you want to bring us up to date with figures and so on?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Before introducing our great speakers, just wanted to give you a quick update. Obviously, we have been observing such an inspirational performances across many sports. Today we have such a large number of medal events. So hopefully we'll be able to see another excitement is going on. On the COVID report, since the July 1st till the 27th, the number of airport tests is now 39,000, and among those, 30 cases were found to be positive. The positivity rate is 0.08%. Concerning the number of total screening tests being conducted up until 27th, the number is 310,000, and among those, 64 cases were found to be positive, which means the positivity rate is 0.02%. We've been updating you on the latest positive cases list. As you might have already seen the latest list. Today we saw 17 new positive cases among those residents in Japan, 7 positive cases among those non-residents in Japan. So that's pretty much everything at this very beginning. So I'm pleased to introduce Horigome Yuto, the Olympic champion in skateboarding, who will be able to speak with you on his achievement.
So, Mr. Horigome, could you share with us your impression and also your experience at Tokyo 2020, please?
今回、堀米優斗です。よろしくお願いします。
Yuto Horigome is my name. Thank you.
今回
Very glad to meet you
本
all.
当このコロナの
Well,
中
under
で
the
すごい厳しい
COVID-19
状況で
pandemic
オリンピック
situation,
があった
the
ことに
situations are very tough.
皆
However,
さんがサポー
Olympic
トしてくれたお
Games
かげ
were
ですごい
staged together with
感謝してます。
everyone being supportive. I'm very
まあスケー
appreciative
トボー
for
ド
your
が初め
support.
て新種目
Skateboarding
オリンピックに
became
決まっ
the
て
new sport
で
for the
本当
Olympic
地元
Games
江東区でその
some
自
time
分のスケ
ago,
ートボードができ
and I'm very
て
happy to
す
do
ごい嬉しく思ってま
skateboarding
す。
in my local hometown.
で
I'm
本
very
当スケー
happy
ト
with
ボード
that.
は今まで
Skateboard
まだそんなに知らなか
has
った
not
人もす
been
ごい多いと思
so
うんですけ
much
ど
well known
このオリンピッ
by
クの機
many
会
people,
を
but
あって
using this
いろんな
Olympic
人たちに
Games, I think we are
すごい
able
楽しさ
to
とかスケボーの
show
楽しさと
how
かかっこよさだった
skateboarding
り
is
とか
fun and
そういうこ
cool
と
to
を知って
many
もらえたので
audience.
すごい
I'm
嬉
so
しいです。
happy to be able to do that as well.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, let's just going to now ask Kirsty, I think, to say a few words about athlete experience here during the past, what are we, a week now, I guess, but some have been here, some of us have been here a bit longer than that, but maybe talk about the athlete experience, the village and so on, and competing. Also, a little bit about the pressures, and as I say, we will and we can take questions and so on athlete mental health. So, Kirsty, do you want to make some introductory comments?
Thanks, Mark. Good morning, everyone. Yes, so we're 6 days in, and we've obviously been seeing some very impressive sport. The athletes are very excited when they walk into the venues to see just how beautiful they are. And as we see the results from the Japanese team leading the scoreboard in terms of medals, I know I've personally been watching some of the swimming and they're doing extremely well. But including that, the athletes' experience at the village is one that is going, again, very positive, very well. They are happy. Everything is working pretty smoothly. Again, they have been sharing a lot of those experiences, I know, with some of you, as well as just on their social media. So on the front of the athlete experience, they are very excited to have the games and to be competing, especially after 5 years. So that's been the main sentiments that we've heard from athletes. As Mark said, mental health, this is something that as a commission we've been working on over the last couple of years. We've seen an increase in athletes reaching out and saying it's a topic that we should be discussing, and especially in the last edition or 2 editions of our previous IOC Athlete Commission forums. And we've taken many different steps. So here we have a 24-hour hotline. We have a safeguarding officer. Every Olympian and Paralympian will have access to the hotline, as well as to 6 free consultations with experts from around the world for up to 3 months after the games, for them to be able to lean on and work through. And the commission going forward will continue to work within this space and continue to find other areas of support. Thanks, Mark.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go to questions. Happy to take any questions you want. I think I see Liam there. Is that Liam? And then Tarek, I think. Let's start.
Good morning, Liam Morgan from Inside the Games. Question for Kirsty. You talked a little bit about the athlete experience and mental health as well. There's been some criticism of the conditions. Candy Jacobs, the Dutch skateboarder who tested positive for COVID-19, is experiencing in an isolation hotel. What is your feeling about that? And has the IOC reached out to her at all and sort of tried to allay her concerns? She described the conditions as inhuman. So I'd just like to know what the IOC is doing to help her. Thank you.
Thanks, Liam. Thanks for the question. Yeah, we have been working very closely with TOCOG and working on improving all of those experiences. Again, the quarantine hotels, and I believe Dr. Budget might have a little bit more information on that, but the quarantine centers and hotels are government centers. But the Candy, as you mentioned, along with a couple other people who have gone in from the Olympic family, have raised similar points, and they are being addressed. We have reached out to them, and we're working on processes to be improved.
I should just say we are in constant contact with the Dutch NOC. We have been since the beginning of this, making sure conditions are okay. We're talking to them. So, Doctor, anything to add? Or
yeah, just to say, obviously it's tough for any athlete when they're sick or injured in the lead up to this major event. And on top of that, if it happens to be COVID-19, you end up in an isolation hotel, which is really hard, however wonderful the conditions were. Now, I have to give tribute to Tokyo 2020 and many other colleagues who've worked tirelessly to make sure that the conditions in the hotel are as good as possible. But there's still going to be huge stress, which is why we're emphasizing mental health here. And now the NOCs do have access to the athletes, so they can help support them. They're kept fully informed, they're in touch with people, they feel connected. And the authorities have agreed that Tokyo 2020 are looking after this hotel to make sure it's geared as close as it possibly can to be to what their needs are. But in the end, under the regulations, they have to be isolated. So there is no getting around that, and that's really tough. But hopefully they can get out sooner rather than later, maximum 10 days if they're asymptomatic, and maybe sooner if they have negative tests. So everything's being done to support them.
Thank you. Tariq, I think, was next from New York Times, and then Wakako.
Hi, just a couple of, sorry, closer? Okay. Just a couple of questions, one to Yuto and one to Dr. Budget. Yuto, we've had two 13-year-old winners in the skateboarding competition. That is an incredibly young age. Can I ask, is that normal that the two best skateboarders in the world are two 13-year-old girls? And we're talking about mental health as well. What kind of pressure would someone so young be on, and what should be done for them to ensure their sort of feet stay on the ground and they don't come under a lot of pressure from advertisers, sponsors, TV, etc. And Dr. Budget, Laurel Hubbard will be appearing on Monday. And there's a lot of discussion around what the science is and what the science isn't. Do you have an idea if she has an advantage over her competitors at 43? It's kind of goes against kind of the normal trajectory of a female weightlifter to be at that elite level, perhaps going for a medal at 43. Thank you.
So myself,
I think the skateboard was selected for the Olympic sport, and it was held in a local town, and there was a lot of pressure also on me as well. But I have friends, close friends, local friends, and also for those who didn't know about skateboarding, supported us a lot, and that actually gave us an encouragement a lot. And so that took off all the pressures, and also all the efforts and practice I've done in the past, all the experiences I had, I believed in them, and then I was able to challenge the Olympics. For those 13 girls and the skateboarders, especially the top girl, it was the first time for her to win the World Game. So for the last few years, there's been a big improvement in the level of skateboarding of those women's athletes. And the younger athletes are coming up, and they're improving a lot. They watch the men's performance, and then those women try to find out how to practice, how to attack, and how to go aggressive in the skateboarding. I think that's how they are learning as well. Especially for women's skateboarders, we'll see much improvement in their skill levels in the future, and the younger generations. And they're really good, and I believe there'll be more and more younger generation to be a much better performer.
Thank you very much. Dr. Budget, do you want to take your question?
Yes, thank you. This is a large and difficult and complex topic, but to put it in a nutshell, obviously the IOC had a scientific consensus back in 2015. There are no IOC rules or regulations around transgender participation. That depends on each international federation. So Laura Hubbard is a woman and is competing under the rules of her federation, and we have to pay tribute to her courage and tenacity in actually competing and qualifying for the games. When it comes to the advantages and disadvantages, there's always more to learn. There's always more science, and there's quite a large amount of research being done at the moment to ascertain the residual advantage after going through male puberty. But you have to weigh that against all the other disadvantages of going through transition, and it's not something that any individual would ever take lightly. There are lots of aspects of physiology and anatomy and the mental side that contribute to an elite performance. And it's very difficult to say, yes, she has an advantage because she went through male puberty, when there's so many other factors to take into account. And it's not simple. I think each sport has to make their own assessment depending on the physiology of that sport, so that they can ensure that there is fair competition, but also inclusion of everyone who, whether they're male or female, able to take part in the sport that they so love. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think as Dr. Budget said, I mean, she qualified under the existing rules of the IWF. So, yeah. Sorry, Wakako, yeah, and then if you would come to the microphone, then we'll be ready for the next question. Yeah.
Thank you so much. This
is Yuki from Yomiuri Papers. I have a question for you, Yuto Horigome. At the beginning, I think you mentioned, so you had this, you were able to gain a gold in this Koto word, your local town. I think you mentioned you were very happy to receive this gold medal. So if this Tokyo Olympics was not held, then you weren't able to obtain this very first gold medal in Koto word. And you didn't get as much support and celebration like you do right now. So maybe it didn't have much impact on the skateboarding in the future. But what do you feel about this? But you achieved that. Also, you all mentioned that one of the reasons why you love skateboard is the freedom. For those who don't know much about skateboard, can you explain how free this skateboarding is? What's the freedom that you're enjoying? Well, for the last couple of years, we were affected by the pandemic and very exposed to a very tough situation. Then we weren't really sure whether the Olympics was going to be held or not. And I was also not sure whether there will be really the Olympics in Tokyo. And if I have this chance, maybe I wasn't able to be part of this Olympics game. I had the concern about that. But more than that, it's not just for the Olympics or the competition. The skateboarding itself and being able to skateboard itself is really fun, and I love that, and I love to skateboard with my friends. It's just the very basics. And that's because of that I was able to do my best for this game. Also, without the Olympics game, I think I would just continue to play skateboarding just like I normally do. And with this Tokyo Olympics, now I see we were able to create a new history in skateboarding. And for those who didn't know about the skateboarding, now they get to know skateboarding, and this sport will become a much more major game. What else did she ask? Was it?
スケートボードのすごい魅力になるんですけど、スケートボードは自由で、自由だし、自由と思うのが自分のやりたいようにやれるスポーツだと思ってるし、本当に世界の人たちとつながれる機会にもなると思うし、スケボーって終わりがないところがすごい面白くて魅力的なのかなと思います。
Thank you very much. Yeah, AP, I think. Next question. Yeah, thanks.
Jenna Fryer, Associated Press. Two different questions. As you all are aware, it's been very hot outside. The tennis players have been complaining. They've asked several times to have the matches move later in the day. They will be starting today. Djokovic complained that the ITF, would not listen. Is that something that IOC or the Olympic Committee could have intervened on and helped with earlier?
Richard, you were maybe just give us a quick rundown of the...
Thank you. Obviously, heat is one of the big issues that we have to consider very carefully leading up to any summer games, and particularly here, we knew it was going to be hot. So there's been an expert group working with the IOC and with Tokyo 2020 and with Japanese experts to make sure that everything is in place, first of all, for mitigation, to try and prevent any heat illness, and particularly serious heat illness, and then to treat any cases of heat stroke. And heat stroke is a very dangerous and serious condition. But obviously that's different from someone who is suffering from the effects of the heat, but not actually heat stroke, which is not a medical emergency. But clearly all the mitigation in place, whether it's shade, water, ice, cold jackets, changing the competition format, and particularly in tennis, they are very well prepared for this situation, have clear rules in place. Once the temperature goes over 30, the format changes and they have that 10-minute break, they have a chance to cool down, then over 32, and the match is actually stopped. And as you probably know, the timing has been changed as well, so we're not going to get that radiant heat. And we follow the wet bulb global temperature, the WBGT, as a good guide to the physiological stress on the exercising athlete. And it's a unique problem in someone who's exercising and pushing themselves, because the body is very good at preventing heat stroke. It will tell you to stop, but if you're in an Olympic competition, there's a temptation not to stop. So that's why we have to be prepared. And working with experts in Japan, I have to say some of the best experts in the world in Japan, we have heat decks in all of the venues where there is a risk, where there are ice baths and all the equipment necessary, so that if anyone does suffer heat stroke, we can deal with it really quickly and efficiently. However, the main aim is on prevention and mitigation. And in each sport, they're very well versed to this, but on top of that is the expertise of Tokyo 2020 and the expert group we've been working with over the last 3 years.
Just as a quick follow-up, I'm curious, the symptoms Medvedev described yesterday, he said he felt like he was blacking out. It sounds a little bit like heat stroke. Was yesterday sort of the straw that broke the back and to move the matches later in the day?
I think I don't want to talk about individual cases because obviously we shouldn't and can't do that. But clearly, player general welfare and comfort has to be considered as well as if there's any medical emergency. I think that protection is there in the structure they have in that sport, and also they responded to people's appeals and concerns.
And totally unrelated, swimming. Simone Manuel will swim heats tomorrow. 4 years ago, she became the first black woman to win a gold medal in the Olympics. FINA would not approve the use of a bathing cap for natural hair. Simone said that that was a move that, in her mind, showed that this is still not a very inclusive sport, swimming. I'm wondering if anyone can address, what is being done to make swimming more inclusive.
I can't talk for FINA, obviously, and FINA, I'm sure you've been in contact, and I think they've issued a number of statements. There is a process to be gone through for all new kit, and as you know, whether it's swimming trunks or whatever they're called these days, and hats and everything. I think they have issued a statement. I don't think it would help for me to kind of comment on that, but I understand it's in process.
Okay.
Yes, Tracy Holmes.
Thank you. Tracy Holmes, ABC Australia. My first question is to Richard Budgett and also maybe Masato Kaya, and that is there's a story in the Australian media today that Japan's medical system is close to collapse, and it's impossible to tell how much the Olympics has contributed to that. I'd just like some comments from your perspective, please. My second question is to Yuto. Yuto, it must have been... can you tell us what was going through your mind ahead of the Olympics when so many people in Japan didn't want it to go ahead, and whether you've noticed a distinct shift in that now that people like you and your fellow athletes have been winning gold medals and giving Japan something to celebrate? Thank you.
Thank you. If I could just kick off with some general remarks on the first question. I mean, as I've been saying all along, here we have the most tested community probably anywhere, almost certainly anywhere in the world. Added to that, you have some of the toughest lockdown restrictions in the athletes' village. They really are living in a different parallel world to all intents and purposes. And if problems occur, we deal with them. As far as I'm aware, there's not a single case of an infection spreading to the Tokyo population from the athletes or Olympic movement. So I can't really go beyond that and simply say also that as far as I'm aware, also not a single severe case has occurred amongst our stakeholders. But Richard, do you want to add to that?
Yes, thank you, Mark. Yes, I'd just add by saying that clearly is the highest priority, always is at an Olympic Games, preparing for Olympic Games, that we do not affect the normal provision of care to the general population. And we have to bear in mind that there are only 2 people in hospital, so all the rest are being cared for within the system that we have in place for the Games. 50% of athlete care is actually by their own medical teams, and the rest provided by the polyclinic. And that is staffed by a flexible workforce so that they don't actually draw down from the hospital in any significant way. So I think obviously it's challenging for any country when there's rising cases of COVID-19, but I am confident that the Olympics are being run without actually affecting that essential secondary care and hospital provision.
Can I quickly compliment? Yeah, I think Richard already covered pretty much everything. We have been reiterating that we will deliver the safe and secure games from the perspective of participants, also from the perspective of Japanese people. We've been, implementing a robust countermeasures on COVID-19, and we have been, making crucial decisions for the past year, including the decision on the no spectators for most of the venues. What I can tell you today is we are also aware that there has been a certain level of concerns in terms of the impact to the local medical situations, but we've been trying to have a appropriate balance between what we will deliver and the impact to the local medical situation. What I can provide you today is that as of today, the number of positive cases in hospital is 2. There are 2 people currently being in hospital, and there is no severe patients at this stage. So I think, as I said, we've been trying to minimize the impact to the local medical system, and in that respect, we've been absolutely right on track to deliver the safe and secure games for both perspectives.
I should just add, just to repeat it, 310,000 tests, screening tests. The rate of positivity is 0.02%. So yes, gentleman there, and then gentleman down here.
I would like to ask questions after Yuto answers the question.
Repeat the question again. We didn't precisely catch it.
My question was for Yuto on the sense of the general public ahead of the Games and them not wanting the Games to go ahead, but has he seen a shift now that Japan is winning gold medals and giving the country something to celebrate?
Before the beginning of the Games, the Japanese people,
I think most of them were really concerned about the Olympic Games. I was able to know that from the news programs. So I was kind of tense because of the news, but now we are able to see the Olympic Games being staged, and I was able to do skating in this dream stage and won the gold medal. Maybe not all Japanese people, but many Japanese people, I think, were impressed by the performance, and the people are very happy. So I'm very happy and thankful for the Olympic Games being staged.
このボランティア、オリンピックボランティアをしてくれてる人とかサポートしてくれてる人たちに本当に感謝してます。
I would like to say thank you.
Yes, gentleman there, and then I'm going to take a question from the.
日本語でお願いします。
I would like to ask you a question to Takaya-san. Tennis, rescheduling of the timing. The single last night, women single last night, had a heat stroke and she left the venue in the wheelchair. There was a shocking photo. And also, ball persons, high school students actually had a heat stroke as well. So the change in schedule can be favorable. But if this is a Japanese person, I guess you would have been able to anticipate this from happening. IOC and IF, those are the people who are to agree, but the organizing committee members who live in Japan would have known this can happen. They should have considered starting the change in schedule very early on, because we saw many people suffering from a hardship. I think organizing committee should be feeling responsibility for those who suffered from the
quickly,
heat
as we
stroke.
explained yesterday, a lot of these issues were dealt with. So the 5,000 meters was moved to the evening. As you know, we moved the marathon and the race walk to Hokkaido, where it is much, much cooler. A number of events, equestrian and so on, have been moved. So it's not something that's come to us, and I think Dr. Budget has also explained already quite intricate rules and regulations in tennis specifically. But Masa, do you want to add to that?
Thank
you very much. As was mentioned by Mark, the athletes, I watched that, but I didn't know about the volunteer who are the high school students. I was not aware of that, so I would go and check the reality. And if I try to answer to your question, the temperature is rising little by little, and the conditions can become harsher. I am concerned about that. However, regarding the schedule of the games, the process of a decision of the games, at each time of the decision making, I think we have chosen the best options. And to come up with this program, the marathon moved to Sapporo is one case in point, and also other sports. The timing of the most timing was removed, so that the cooler timing can be the starting point for the games. So we did that change. For this particular one that you are pointing out, since the game started, we have changed the timing of the schedule, and this has become the best option that we are able to take at this point in time. Without taking no action, IOC and IF and organizing committee, we get together and consider together for the best option. And that was resulting in the change in the game schedule.
I have one more question on the same note. On the August 6th, the women's soccer football final is starting at 11 a.m. in the morning. That is a killing schedule from Japanese perspective. Do you have a plan to make a change on schedule? At this point, there is no discussion about the schedule change. There's been a concern raised now, and if there is any concern raised, then we will have a discussion and may make a proper decision at this point. But once again, let me repeat, regarding scheduling of the time, we have reviewed many different perspectives, and TOCOG has also reviewed the heat in Japan, and we have been in the discussion to avoid those heat as much as possible in setting a schedule. And from different various perspectives, we have decided the current schedule we have. At this point of time, we have not discussed about any change on this schedule on football, soccer.
Yeah, we can give you, if you want, a full list of all the changes that were made anyway beforehand. But obviously, rescheduling is part of every single Olympic Games. There's a scheduling committee, and anything will be put to that. The committee is mainly made up of IF, IOC, TOCOG, and other experts who help with that. So, yeah, gentleman over here. Oh, and then I'll take a question from New York Times Online.
共同通信の長谷川と申します。日本語で。
This is Hasegawa from Kyodo.
2点ありまして、
I have two questions.
1点先ほど出た質問
First question, this is related to the earlier question.
コロナに陽性になって
Under
しまった
the
選
pandemic,
手
those positive athletes are now being isolated in hospital regarding the environment of those athletes, and you're taking various measures to make sure that they are in the safe environment. But what were the specific issues? What improvement did you make? Can you give us specific examples of that? Second question, Takaya-san, earlier, for those who are hospitalized right now, you mentioned there are two athletes. I think that's what I heard through the interpretation, but those were the athletes, right? Yeah, let me answer the latter second question first. For all the competition-related stakeholders, for those visitors from outside of Japan, for those older stakeholders, right now we have 2 members being in hospitals at this point, and there is no severe conditions at this point. So for everyone who's coming from outside of Japan, and out of those stakeholders, 2 are now in hospitals. Regarding those with positive the care for the athletes with positive results. And there are many things being provided so far. Of course, the supplies, necessary supplies in a flexible manner as much as possible. And nurses are there to support in providing consultation for 24 hours, including mental care. And at this point, during the lunchtime, on the first floor, lobby is open to those athletes to allow them to be able to use. So that way, they don't have to stay in a room the whole time. They can actually be relaxed to go out of the room. So we try to create such a time. So such a resilient measures are being taken at the same time. So, and also we are working with the embassy in Tokyo and NOCs, and we have an understanding of our efforts, and we are receiving a message of appreciation as well.
Just want to add, by the way, and I'm sure Dr. Budget would agree with me, that we would go nowhere near towards identifying anyone who happened to be concerned. So it would be pure speculation who they are, what country they're from. We wouldn't comment on that whatsoever. Question from Motoko Rich from New York Times, Kirsty, regarding mental health. Can you comment on the social media abuse of Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka, and what is the IOC doing to support athletes?
Thanks, Mark. Well, I think over the last couple of days, we've heard a few athletes have gone off social media. Personally, I went off social media last year because as nice and as supportive as some people can be, the negative comments, even if they are the fewest comments, can be really hurtful to athletes. So it's sad to see that that's continuing. But in terms of what the IOC and the Commission are doing, we obviously have our 24-hour hotline. We have a safeguarding officer within the village. As I said, we also have the opportunity for athletes to reach out through the hotline to experts from around the world, and it's available in 70 languages. And again, that free counseling of 6 free sessions of counseling and support for athletes up to 3 months after the games is also being provided. As a commission, we've also had some walkthroughs with our safeguarding liaison and officer to sort of help us better understand when athletes come to us, the support that they would need, and a step-by-step on how to help that athlete, refer them to the best person around them to get extra support. So as a commission, we're always fully open and engaged. We have not had anyone come up to us specifically during this games. It's been through other athlete representatives that we've had contact, and we're just giving them the support they need in order to support their athletes that are going through those times.
Thank you, Kirsty. Yeah, I think Graham wanted a question, and lady over there, and gentleman, I think it's Alex Capstick, but I can't see. Yeah.
Hi, Graham Dunbar from Associated Press. Okay. Questions for Kirsty and for Kaveh. Kirsty, just on the broader point of the duty of care to the athletes, you mentioned the athlete forum. I mean, the IOC sort of excludes certain athletes groups from taking part in that because they don't meet the definition of being representative. And when you did the biggest survey that you did, you know, there was a disproportionate number of replies from Chinese athletes, I think more than 3 times more than are represented here. And the average age of the respondents was 33. Are you sure and are you confident you're doing all you can to get the best input and information to help athletes like Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka? Could you be doing more to broaden the data that you get? And for Kaveh, I mean, we've seen an Algerian judoka and his coach sent home from these games for refusal to compete against an Israeli opponent, but the team officials stay. Is that fair that the athletes take responsibility for this? I mean, from your own personal experience on this subject, is it an athlete decision to not take part in that opponent, or are they being made the scapegoat for people higher up the chain playing politics?
Thanks for the question. You know, I think we can always, as individuals and as representatives, we can always do more. And that's what the Commission is working on. We've got to consistently stay engaged with all of our athlete representatives. In terms of our report, the survey was not, it wasn't the only piece of information that we used for our report. We spoke to individual athletes, we spoke to numerous NOC athlete commissions who had done their own surveys, and those surveys were all taken into account where they had particularly gone and done surveys at a national level with a lot more athletes, and again, those were all taken. So the process in which we came up with the report that you're referencing was done very broadly, and I don't think you can look at just one part of that entire process. It was a process that was done over 12 months with a lot of engagement from many different athlete representatives from all Olympic sports, from all backgrounds globally, and that's the way in which we will continue to work. We also had and took into consideration our global athlete calls that we do, and we were doing every 6 weeks where there were different questions asked and queries and responses given. That was all put cumulatively into the report that went forward. So we will promise to continue engaging and increasing that engagement with all of the athlete representatives. But, you know, I do firmly believe, and I'm very impressed with the work that was done around the consultation process. It's increased as the years have gone on, and it will continue to increase, and the Commission will work at continually engaging with all Olympians. So far at the Games, we've had very good engagement in the village with athletes from the, there's the pin quest that's going on, that's again informing athletes and helping athletes to inform us on what they're going through and feeling and expecting. So these things all get taken into account in terms of the engagement with athletes consistently across the Olympic movement.
And Kaveh?
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for the question. I think the question also was raised yesterday or the day before to my colleague, James McLeod. Obviously, I'm not aware whether that decision was the decision of the athletes or the officials, so I'll have to leave it at that. But as you know, the NOC has taken a decision and taken some measures, and as my colleague, Mr. McLeod, mentioned, IOC is monitoring, of course, if there is a case of the violation of the Olympic Charter, and that will be addressed accordingly. Thank you.
Yeah, a couple of things just to add there. I think just to be aware that obviously it wasn't just the athlete, it was also the coach who went home, and I think James McLeod made it quite clear that this isn't the end of the matter, so I think there will be further actions involved. And just on your first question, the survey itself, which I think was of 3,200 athletes or something like that, was under the auspices of the Swiss Centre of Expertise in Social Sciences. So I think if you feel that the methodology was not up to your standard, then I think you should probably take it up with experts in the field and discuss. If you have some suggestions, I'm sure they'd be ready to hear them. Yes, lady over there in the...
Hi, Aya Shamisa from Bloomberg. I have a question for IOC or Tokyo 2020. It's regarding the playbook rule. So due to the rule that athletes have to leave the village in Japan 48 hours after their last competition, so how many athletes have already left the village in Japan? Thank you.
That's not a figure I have to hand, and I'm not sure that we have a number for that at the moment. But you're right, athletes are supposed to leave after 48 hours, so I'm sure that is being enforced. But Masa, do you have anything to add? Or?
Thank you
very much for your question. The numbers, I don't have it off the cuff. So to the extent possible, we would like to sort out numbers so that we can share that number with you.
Alex Capsicum, BBC, and then gentleman, here, you sir, next, if you could, we'll kind of come over here. Yes.
Thank you. A question to Dr. Budget. I understand that federations have their own, can implement their own rules regarding transgender athletes, but the truth is that the vast majority follow the IOC guidelines that were put in place in 2015, and you have been undertaking reviews with the intention of changing those guidelines. Why is it taking so long? And a question to either Richard or Kirsty, are you putting in place any measures to help or to protect Laurel Hubbard from all the attention she's going to get in the next few days and after her competition? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I think there are no guidelines, but there's the scientific consensus, and they were working on a framework to help IFs with that difficult decision of how to ensure inclusivity while ensuring also fairness. And as you all know, there is a lot of disagreement across the whole world of sport and beyond on this issue of eligibility. Everyone agrees transgender women are women, but it's a matter of eligibility for sport and particular events. And it really has to be very sport specific. So it is up to each sport, in each discipline even, as to exactly what the rules for participation and eligibility are. So it is complex, and one of the reasons that there have been no framework published yet is not just because of the difficulty in coming to any consensus, and there's been a huge consultation exercise going on with all those bodies and individuals and representatives who are involved in this. It's because it would have been inappropriate to come out with a new framework or guidelines just before the Olympic Games. And of course that was going to be a year ago, and now it's now. So there will be a new framework to help IFs. We're working very closely with them, but it's not published yet.
Mark, I'm just going to give a quick response. Mark, do you mind if
I
just
apologies.
respond? Yeah, that's okay. Yes, so we, I'm sure you know, but Sarah Walker is a New Zealand BMX rider who's on the IOC Athlete Commission. She's been keeping us up to date and will obviously be our first point of contact to Laurel. We don't want to bombard her any more than she needs to be, but the support is going through Sarah to her, and we'll come back through that same way in terms of speaking to her.
Thank you, Kirsty. Yeah, gentlemen there. We're going to get round as many people as we can, but those who haven't asked questions before. Yeah, okay.
Hi, I'm Takenaka from Reuters. This is more like a double-checking what you already said, and this is a question for Mr. Takaya about those two people, games-related people from overseas who are now in hospital. Just double-checking, are they in hospital because they are contracted with the coronavirus? Sounds a stupid question, but just let me double-check that. And then, could you give us a little bit more about these two people? Are they athletes?
If I could just interrupt you, sir, sorry to be annoying, but I think Richard maybe want to give us some guidance. I'm not sure we should be discussing cases, individual cases of people at a press conference. I'm sorry about that, but Richard, you...
We could just say that there's nobody in intensive care. That's the critical thing.
Okay. How about just the fact that whether or not they are there because of the coronavirus?
I don't think we can say that because if you identify the individuals, then you would know whether or not they had COVID-19, so it's difficult.
I think we have to be very careful about patient confidentiality. Yeah, in yellow there, person. Sorry, yes, gentleman first, and then the lady in yellow, yeah.
Thank you, Hiroki Tora from Asahi Shimbun. Question about mental health, maybe Kirsty or Mark. So a lot of social media abuses. Will the IOC or the Athlete Commission will be holding a discussion or maybe a seminar within the athletes to how to protect them from those abuses? And other question is, will IOC or the Commission will make any request or maybe take action against those social media companies? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Yes, so we have been working very closely with the mental health working group. We have 3 athlete representatives, 2 Olympians and a Paralympian that are a member of that working group. It's a group made up of 9. From that mental health, some of the initiatives are the toolkit, which helps with the stakeholders to better understand how to support athletes in and around and going through how to identify and step by step. And I'm sure Dr. Budget, who's a big part of that group, could give us a little bit more information and we can share, I'm sure, the toolkits with you. But from the Commission's point of view, it's been, as I said, a topic that over the last couple of years is something that we've been working on. The Commission itself, from this toolkit and something that came from the forum this year, was to how to figure out to support athlete commissions at an NOC level and an international federation level. And we're going to be coming up with an educational toolkit that will teach the athlete representatives how to take that step-by-step reaction in terms of when an athlete approaches them. It was very apparent that a lot of athletes who are struggling may go to a peer and not to the doctor or the team coach. And so they want to feel more prepared in how to be sensitive around that and how to help their athletes. So the Commission going forward has agreed, along with the mental health working group, to come up with a framework and like a toolkit for athlete representatives who can be that first contact. So that's what they will be working on. In terms of the social media companies and things, I think there's not really too much that we can do with that, but just to advocate that a lot of those companies already do have different rules and regulations around hate speech and things like that. And obviously, if they can look at potentially improving that, and when it comes to targeting athletes around sports events, we would support those kinds of initiatives.
Yeah, lady there, and then I think, yes, here, and then that'll be it, I think, probably. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Imai from NHK. I have a question for Yuto Horikome and also Takaya-san. First for Yuto, skateboarding gives you freedom, and you also think that freedom is an attractive part of the sport you mentioned. In the Olympics, for the last many years, there's been traditions, and they've been trying to protect their traditions, so there are many rules, maybe affected by the sponsors and others. But still, once you join this game, did you feel no restraint from those, other stakeholders? What was your impression condition for you to be in part of the Olympics game for the first time, and still were you able to feel some any attractiveness to be in the Olympics more than those big money games around the world? So now that I joined the Olympics, I really felt as I joined in a very different world championships and the games in the past. And unlike those other games, this Olympic game has been watched by so many people, billions of people around the world. Especially, this was a new sport. The skateboard was a new sport for the Olympics. And many people get to know this game through this opportunity. Oh, what was the other question? Sorry. So those big money, the prizes with other games, I think that's also not important, but still, more than that, being part of this Olympics game is such an dreamy stage, and where I was able to skateboard for such a dream place. I think that this was the best experience for me, and that was a great experience as well. And I think this will give a much better direction for the skateboarding as a sport in the future. Question for Takaya-san. Regarding opening ceremony, some of the news report mentioned that Naoto Takenaka, the actor, was scheduled to be on stage. However, because he made some, he was part of the performance in the past to have any negative impact on disabled, so he decided to withdraw from being part of the performance. Was that a fact? Can you confirm that? If that is the fact, what is your comment, public comment from Toko? So regarding Naoto Takenaka, the actor, Japanese actor, just before the opening game, he made a decision to withdraw from the performance because of the past performance he was involved in the past. He made some inappropriate comment. So he himself reflected on that fact in the past, and he decided to withdraw from participating in the opening ceremony. And the Tokyo 2020 accepted that, and Mr. Takenaka decided not to be part of the opening game. That's what happened.
Thank you. I think I said two more. We're right at the end, so if you could keep your questions brief. Yes, please. And yeah, lady there. Thank you very much.
Radio France とリベラション新聞の西村です。
This is Nishimura, Radio France. Let me ask you in Japanese, mainly for Takaya-san. So right now in Japan, the pandemic situation in Japan, according to experts, so many times they were afraid of this situation to come in Japan, and because there are two contracting messages being issued. So from a psychologist perspective, let me read this. So this festivity of Olympics is being created, but at the same time, state of emergency is taking place. Those are two contracting messages are out. And from people's psychology, people want to listen to whatever they want to hear. So that is a natural. That's a natural situation. So my question is, even though there is a direct impact, however, having this Olympic game may have had an indirect impact of expanding the infections in this country. Didn't it happen?
これまで繰り返しお伝えしてきたことを
We have been repeatedly mentioned this. Once again, let me repeat this comment.
まず感染状況に関しては
Regarding the infections in Japan, today in Tokyo Metropolitan, we'll have a monitoring meeting in the afternoon today. And of course, we have listened to various comments from experts and taking the various measures against the pandemic, and we were trying to be effective in addressing the pandemic situation. And today, again, the current situation, it will be discussed today among the experts and evaluated the current status. And according to the results and knowledge, we will of course listen to the result of the discussion, and we will also try to continue to make this Olympic game to be a safe environment as much as possible.
Thank you, Masa. Yeah, last question, please.
This is Harada from TBS Broadcasting. I have a question for Takaya-san. So volunteers for the Olympics, the inspections, the testing on the volunteers, according to the guideline for the volunteers, on the first day of the activity, before that, they were supposed to take a test, the COVID test. But as I talked to the actual volunteers, they were only able to obtain the test on the day of the start of activities. That's what I heard. So the guidelines been abided by them?
検体の提出についてはこれ自主的にボランティアが提出ということになっていますが、このチェック体制管理について現在の状況を教えてください。
今のボランティアの件に関しては、私ちょっと確認が必要になります。
I think I need to check on the details right now. I do not have the answer immediately at this point.
当日に
On the day of their
どう
activities,
してもその検査をせざるを得ない状況がある場合には、
they have to
メディア
take
の
the
方
test.
と一度お話もさせていた
I
だきま
think
したけれ
we've
ども、
talked about this with the
皆
media
さん
people
も
as
同様
well.
な対応をされている
And I'm sure you've
ルール
taken
は
the
ルール
same
なので、
actions.
そ
And
れ
there
を
is a
基
rule
本的には守っていた
and
だ
the
くよう
rules to be
に
abided
お
by,
願い
of
は
course.
しています
We
が、
are
どうし
requesting
ても
them
前
to
日ま
follow
で
the
に受けら
rules,
れない
but
よ
if
うな
they
場合
are
には
not able to
当日
obtain the test
お
the
答
day
えいただく
before,
ケースも当然
before the activity day, I'm sure there are some volunteers who were not able to take the test in
Thank
advance.
you very much. It's not often I share the stage with 4 Olympians, so thank you for coming and sharing your time. And once again, Yuto, congratulations, and see you all tomorrow, same time. Thank you very much.